Repeat. Um, everyone has a different practice schedule. I think practices like this are really great in the morning, but again, we're all very different. So you kind of figure out a time to do this. Um, and as you're doing mantras, right? Um, like what we do together, is um, more of a group thing, and more creative, I would say, from practice to practice. But when you're doing this mantra practice on your own, this is a time for you to develop intimacy with the consciousness, the mind of the deity of Medicine Buddha. So this is like personal time that we're spending figuring out what and how the deity feels. What is my experience of Medicine Buddha in this? And of course, these experiences do for many of us, not all of us, but many of us, these experiences do start off as being very, very, very subtle as well. So this is, maybe it's not something you can initially connect to, but over time you will. Like the more you dedicate to the practice and the more faith you begin to awaken for any deity, including Medicine Buddha, the more the deity reveals themselves to us. And the more we begin to understand how the deity reveals themselves. And that's, of course, that's kind of related to lineages of divination and channeling and mediumship and so forth, where, people, everyone's so different that everyone has a different way of noticing, or people get different signs and whatever that indicates something happening in and around them. And that's a really interesting conversation to have, when you're with, other deity practitioners, deity yoga practitioners, other intuitives and so forth. Like, what are your signs that something's trying to contact you, right? So what is the signs for Medicine Buddha contacting you? Like, how does Medicine Buddha speak with you? And this is how we can figure it out, is through intensive mantra practice, and that's also what I mean by attunement. You begin to attune to the specific communication that you're being offered from the deity, like how the deity is communicating with you. You begin to learn that, and so much of that communication is deeply intuitive, is very subtle. And this is why we also at the same time train in awareness practice, because you have to like develop this really like really like subtle awareness that begins to sense these subtle arisings in mind and your body and the space around you. And again, the mantra can help us do that. All right, so any questions? We're going to do a short mantra initiation kind of ritual, very similar to what we did yesterday for Chinrezi. And I told the story yesterday, but I was just yesterday reflecting on my friend Sering, who is a Tibetan man, who I would see walking in my neighborhood I lived in years ago when I first started practicing. He would just be walking through the neighborhood with a mala, and reciting mantras. And he was a friend of mine. And so one day I happened to pass him on the sidewalk and I stopped him. And I said, "Oh, what are you chanting on your mala?" And he was chanting Chinese Igomani Peme Home, right? And I bring that up because that's in Tibetan religious culture, like that's just kind of very, particularly with the older generations. That's what you see. Or if you go to India, if you go to Tibetan communities or Nepal, especially Nepal, you'll just see people just out walking, running errands, doing whatever, and with malas and just chanting mantras. It's like, and that's, I find that to be so beautiful to be in countries where you can have that kind of spiritual public practice and it's respected. And that practice isn't about proselytizing or converting anyone, but it's just a very personal thing that you do, and it's deeply respected. Like, because almost everyone's doing it, you know. And so I love that being in communities where I can just openly practice and people know it's practice and deeply respect it, you know. I remember one year we were on pilgrimage. We were in Bodh Gaya um, with Rinpoche, and Rinpoche decides that we're going to do a silent retreat um, in front of the stupa at Bodh Gaya. And some of you have been to Bodh Gaya. Bodh Gaya is considered the site of awakening for the Buddha. That's where he achieved awakening, and it's a whole. If you've been to Bodh Gaya, it's a whole show there. It's like it could be very overwhelming because every lineage and tradition of Buddhism is represented by practitioners at Bodh Gaya, you know. So you have everyone. You have the Bhutanese, you have the Thai practitioners, you have the Tibetans, like you have Japanese Zen practitioners, the Chan. I mean, it's just like everyone, it's really beautiful. So in the middle of all of this intense practice, Rinpoche was like, we're gonna do a silent 2-day ritual here, and you can't talk, right? But you have to walk around, right? And so we would do this, and people would come up to you and talk, and all you had to do was put your finger up to your lips, and people knew that you were observing us and austerity, which was silence. And just people just left you alone. It didn't matter who they were. It was like, as long as you did this, people knew that you were in practice and gave you the space. I just thought that was like incredible. Of course, I was in robes, so like, so I may have given off the appearance of being a monastic. But this was post-retreat, so I was barely hanging on to some of those vows. Or I should say I was selective. I was selective about the vows that I was hanging on to, particularly I was selective about the vows that weren't fun to hold on to. So yeah. So someone has a mala with odd number of beads. So just be aware of how many beads are on the mala. And so when you do a full mala, that's how many you do. You may do 76, malas, you have 76 malas, and that's so a whole recitation is 76. So that, that's fine. But I would like you to get up to 108. All the time, you always have 108. You never have like a whole number as the number of accumulations, because the idea also is that you need a few extra to make up for the ones that you didn't do right. So the extra 8 mantras are to replace the ones, that you weren't really doing well. But I suspect for some of us, we will need more than 8 mantras as spares, So I think that's it. I really think that's it. I know this is some of y'all's first time working with mantras in a really traditional way, but again, for me, I don't often use a mala for counting mantras. I just chant them. I'm not really it's not important for me to record or to accumulate. Like I just chant until I feel something has been accomplished. You know, the accomplishment can also mean that I get tired of chanting. So I've accomplished getting tired of chanting. So, which is a real sign to end a practice, I think. Um, and you just shouldn't, I'm not a believer that you should just do mantras any old way and whatever, like you just accumulate them and you have them. I don't believe in it. I think that's a waste of time. Like you may learn the mantra like that, but like when you're reciting a mantra, you just want to show up as much as possible. You just want to be present with the mantra and in the mantra for every single one of them, because each recitation that we're really present and aware in is one little bit closer to awakening, right? So really so 108, like I really want us to really show up for 108 malas, recitations. And to get used to just dropping into the energy of the mantra and just being there. Not that your mind won't wander, because it does, but you can just gently guide the mind, your awareness back into the practice, and to let go of the tension too, of wanting to do everything right. So there's a lot of contradictions here, and we just kind of have to deal with it. Like there's tons of contradictions, right? Like I want you to stay present, but I don't want you to freak out when you're not. Like you have to let go of that judgment and that tension and that edginess, and just notice when you're distracted. You say, "Oh, I'm distracted," and just come back. Right? That's the practice. Anytime we wake up in a practice and notice what we're doing, that's the practice. So you catch yourself distracted. Catching yourself is the practice. That's what we're doing, right? It's as much the practice as it is just saying the mantra is the practice. So I want to just offer the mantra in a more formal way, like we did yesterday for Chinrezi, just for you um, to really receive the mantra formally. So I know some of you are semi-professional Tibetan Buddhists, so I know y'all are like clocking me to death with these rituals. They're like, well, Lama Rod isn't doing X, Y, and Z and A, B, C, and 1, 2, 3. And who are you going to report it to? No one, because lamas are tenured. When you become a lama, there's no going back. And that's the thing about Tibetan Buddhism. That's the thing about Lamaism. Quite honestly, it's like you become a lama, ain't no one's going to like reverse your experience of retreat. Like that's not what we do. And certain traditions and certain lineage of Buddhism, yeah, you can have your title taken, but that just never happens, in the tradition. Obviously, as we know what some teachers have been up to, they keep all of their shit and plus some. So so let's do this. Let's do this. And you can, you don't have to look at the mantra page here. Because you won't need it, but I always like to look at least the mantra circle as well. So the mantra, if you look at the mantra circle, so you have as the central syllable in the middle of the circle. The right? Is, of course, probably the most sacred syllable in tantric traditions. The sound of the universe, the frequency of the universe, so some would say. But the mantra actually begins at the bottom of the circle with teata. And teata, te is the figure at the bottom, slightly to the right of the that looks like a 5, that looks like the number 5 with a slash on top. So that's te. So ta is the root syllable. That accent marker changes the sound of the syllable to te. And I'm not going to go any further with Tibetan because, quite honestly, I'm getting a little fuzzy at this point in my life. So it begins te, and then the next syllable, te ya ta, te be kenze. Wait, where am I at? Again, so be kenze. Maha Be Kenze and also Sumagache. So I probably should have put this on a shared screen and I could just point it out to you, but it's really not important. But just to know that that is the Tibetan script for the mantra. And we're going to be using that later on too, because I think that's really, really powerful visualization to use. Okay, so let's start. Let's get into it. Let's begin again just by coming to a position that feels appropriate for you for just a short period of practice here. Now, probably somewhere in the practice, maybe offer the prayers too. So we'll figure that out as we get into it. And we begin, just by connecting to our intentions for practice. And so, always for me, my intention is, in general, always to experience liberation and to help others experience liberation from suffering. And so we're going to continue by calling into the space our benefactors, our homecoming circles. And many of you have done this with me before, but just as a very basic guidance, to just begin by calling into the space our teachers, our guides, elders, mentors. I always say that my teachers are those who teach me how to get free, who teach me how to deeply embody love. Anyone who does that is a teacher or a mentor or a guide. So calling all those beings into the space. We continue by calling into the space the energy of our wisdom texts. So the energy of teachings and texts and scriptures and philosophies, writings, books, quotes, art, right? Anything that inspires us to get free, we call in that energy of inspiration. into the space. Right. For an example, another example, I get really excited about the Heart Sutra. The Heart Sutra is my central teaching sutra, teaching of the Buddha. And so I call in the Heart Sutra to really motivate me, to inspire me, because I'm so excited about, the realization offered, in that sutra. So calling in those energies. And the next, calling in the communities who love us, who care for us and support us. So our communities, again, are communities where we experience love with a wish for us to be safe and happy and resourced, and where we can also express the same wish of love out to others. And then next, calling in our benevolent ancestors. So those ancestors who are here to help, not those ancestors who need our help, right? Because we're creating a container where we're being explicitly supported, not where we're trying to offer energy back to any being. So inviting ancestors who are here to offer to our work. And then calling in the energy of our lineages, right? So our spiritual lineages, or any lineage of people or beings who have made it possible for us to do something that we love or something that's important for us. Right? So the people who learned how to do this thing and then passed it on to me, that's our lineage. So inviting all those folks, those beings, into the space as well. And again, we're connecting to the earth. So noticing the earth under us, the seeds, these are the elements, the experiences of grounding and stabilization. We always have to feel held and stabilized to do intensive practice. We call into the space, silence, and at the heart of silence, the expression of stillness. So connecting to that stillness, which is really the essence, right, of phenomena. The stillness is the emptiness and the energy that is the expression of all phenomena. And lastly, of course, we recognize ourselves, we call ourselves into the circle, right? So we imagine our circle of benefactors, our homecoming circle around us. And now we begin to imagine as we shift our attention through the homecoming circle back out into the world, the whole universe. And I invite you to imagine that the whole universe, everything, begins to radiate with this blue light. So everything has this blue radiance around us. The world is turning blue. And this radiance of blue is the energy, the consciousness of Medicine Buddha. This is the energy of healing and wholeness and balance that inherently radiates from all phenomena throughout the entire universe. So the world, the universe, all phenomena are actually full of healing, and they are expressions of the consciousness of Medicine Buddha. And slowly, I invite you to imagine, as you bring your attention back to your homecoming circle, that your homecoming circle begins to absorb this white, the blue radiance, the healing, the consciousness, energy of Medicine Buddha. So they're beginning to absorb all of this energy from the universe. And slowly it begins to seem as if your circle of benefactors begins to really turn into this ring, this glowing ring of blue radiant light around you. So noticing and feeling the intensity of this blue ring of energy, which is your homecoming circle, getting more and more intense. We turn our attention to the mantra of invitation, Om Namah Sangye Kino Soha. Medicine Buddha, I pray that you know and look upon me. And we'll chant this 3 times. And as we chant this, we are preparing our body, our physical body, our mental body, our energy body to begin to receive the energy of Medicine Buddha and the energy of Medicine Buddha's mantra. So this is our preparation mantra in this case, okay? So we'll recite it 3 times. Om La Sangye Kino Soham. Om La Sangye Kino Soham. Om La Sangye Kino Soham. And having recited the mantra of invitation, we imagine that the expressions of our bodies, our energy, physical and mental body, is attuned now to receive the consciousness of Medicine Buddha. So now we imagine that our ring of benefactors glowing in this blue radiant light begins to radiate that light, that blue light into our heart centers. And from our heart centers, our bodies begin to be filled with this energy of blue light. And we imagine that this blue light intensifies even more, and this light begins to stream from our bodies. And the streaming gets really intense as well. And so slowly we begin to imagine that our bodies begin to dissolve in this blue light. And what is left is our energy bodies, which is just an expression of brilliant blue light that is contained and held by our ring of benefactors around us. So we're just not spreading out into the universe. We're this radiant blue light being held within the circle. We let our awareness for just a few seconds kind of float within the fluidity, the lucidity of this blue light. And this being the very essence of Medicine Buddha's consciousness. And slowly we begin to imagine that our energy bodies, this massive blue light, begins to take on the shape of Medicine Buddha, as Medicine Buddha is traditionally presented in the iconography. So the iconography on our forms on the Google Doc. So we begin to take on the form of Medicine Buddha. No details yet, but just the form. This blue light just begins to shape itself in the outline of Medicine Buddha. And from the heart center of our energy bodies as it's forming Medicine Buddha. So from the heart center, I invite you to imagine the syllable Om, as you may see on the Google Doc. And you can imagine Om as the Tibetan letter or as the English word. So in whatever way, begins to appear in the heart center, radiating gold as a gold letter. And around the we began to imagine each syllable or English word of the Medicine Buddha mantra beginning to appear. So a mantra circle begins to arise in gold in your heart center. So this gold mantra circle is radiating from the mist of this energy body in the shape of Medicine Buddha. So I'm going to say each syllable of the mantra. So I'll say the syllable and just staying on mute in your own space, just repeating the syllable after me. Okay. So beginning with So teata, baconze, baconze, maha, baconze, razza, sumun, gate, soha. And two more times. Teata, baconze, baconze, maha, baconze, razza, sumungate, soha. Teata, baconze, baconze, maha, baconze, razza, sumungate, soha. And then we'll recite the English translation together. So beginning now, like this, I pray for the end of pain and suffering and the roots of pain and suffering. And I release the energy of this prayer out to all the world so that we may all be liberated. So now we'll transition just into just a minute of the mantra. And I'll offer the drum. And as we chant the mantra, just imagine that the mantra circle in the heart center actually begins to dissolve into your body as Medicine Buddha. And as the mantra dissolves, imagine that your body as Medicine Buddha actually becomes much more tangible. So you begin to actually take on the qualities and the appearance and details of Medicine Buddha. So as the mantra dissolves, you become more like Medicine Buddha in appearance. Right? We'll begin. Om Deyada Om Begenze Ma Begenze Razu Gate So 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 대하다 온백은제 백은제 마백은제 라스수문가 대소와 대하다 온백은제 백은제 마백은제 라스수문가 대소와 대하다 온백은제 백은제 마백은제 라스수문가 대소와 대하다 온백은제 백은제 마백은제 라스수무야레소와 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 대하다 온백은제 백은제 마백은제 라스수무야레소와. So having completed this transmission of the sacred mantra of Medicine Buddha, we now consider ourselves connected for this life and really all our lifetimes to come to this profound practice and mantra of Medicine Buddha. So we begin to imagine that our benefactor circle, homecoming circle around us, dissolves into this blue light, and that we absorb this blue light into our heart centers as Medicine Buddha. And returning our attention to our bodies again, we imagine that our bodies as Medicine Buddha begins to dissolve into blue light. And this blue light dissolves into emptiness itself, leaving our consciousness to expand and mingle in space and emptiness itself. And so slowly we begin to re-arise back into our bodies, turning our attention to the seat, connecting to the weight of our bodies, making contact with the seat. And you can continue by just reawakening the body, bringing simple, slow movements back. Maybe taking a few deep cleansing breaths as well. And so, friends, this is the transmission of the sacred mantra of Medicine Buddha. Um, I would play the mantra from my teacher, but I can't really get my iTunes to work still. So you're gonna, I owe some people some mantras, but I can't get anything to work right now because retrograde is apparently doing something that obviously has an impact in my life. I'm sorry, Mercury. Mercury, she's doing something that has an impact on my life. So when shit falls apart, blame Mercury. In any case, you receive the mantra, and to know that this mantra has been practiced for at least 900, 800 years continuously through my lineage, through the Kagyu, the Kagdrupas, the Kagyu practitioners. So yes, so I would love for everyone to do at least 100 a day, right? And of course, building up, right? I will say that for some of us, we will experience maybe some intense energetic stuff coming up, which is always, especially after this, once I've done this kind of initiation, you are attuned a little deeper to the mantra now. So you may experience something. If it gets too intense, just stop, do something else, do some grounding practice. But just keep moving through in whatever way feels appropriate for you. Okay. I will offer the prayers in my personal practice. So I won't do it now since we're past. And Chinrezi too. Oh, so I haven't, so we're gonna wait for Chinrezi, but you can do Chinrezi if you want as well. I wasn't gonna do a mantra setup for Chinrezi until maybe in the spring. But if people want to do it, you can start doing it and we'll talk about it next month as well. Okay, to also do Medicine Buddha in the morning and Paul Lama at night. Yes. Technically, so you know how I feel about these technicalities. No one cares. I certainly don't care, but I do care. So here's the thing: Paul Lama is technically an emanation of Tara. Tara is technically an emanation of Prajna Paramita, right? But technically we all are, but like I don't want to go down that. Like it's too confusing. I say all that to say that all the mantras are rising within a tradition, the tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, can be said in what combination, whatever, because certainly in 3-year retreat, we had to do all these mantras all together all the time. Everything everywhere at once. That was really what retreat was. Everything everywhere all at once. Okay, great. I think that's it. Oh, 100. So when I say 100, I mean a whole mala. So that would be 108. Now, if you ask my teacher that, he would be like, oh, you can do more since you're really concerned with numbers. Great. Awesome. What is everything everywhere, Dharma? I have to work on it. I'm not so impressed with the movie. I am impressed with Michelle Yeoh, absolutely, not, years and years, but I don't know. I feel like the movie was more about, talk about Wayman and masculinity. Which one was Wayman? Wayman was the husband. Be confused. Oh, the eyeballs. We'll see. We'll see. Okay, great. And we'll be back in practice next week. And next month I'll also reintroduce Sacred Mother practice as well, to get back into that for us. Prayers, and I'm going to do prayers. I'll offer prayers in my practice. Or, I mean, yeah, I can, I don't want to do. Yeah, I'll offer the prayers later on. One more question, Rachel.
Go ahead, Rachel, unmute yourself.
I just actually wanted to make a comment, which is it's actually wonderful to have a mala, and I think the stones are alive, just like everything is alive. And so, as you say, these malas, they're getting embedded in the stones. And so the mala can then become just a source of great comfort, just to have it when you're feeling freaked out. So, and they're easy to keep track of things, but I just think it's not an ought to or have to or you should, but I think it's wonderful, a deep source of comfort. That's all I want to say. And thank you for tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that comment. Yeah, they're just, nice to have, and, and to really use them. Again, I really agree with that being a source of comfort as well. Because this model has been blessed by a lot of different teachers, and so it just reminds me that I do specific practices with specific models as well. But I'm like, semi-professional here, so like it's so thank you all so much again. And again, I'll do some offerings, some prayers. I'll offer the prayers in my practice as well. Okay. Thank you, everyone, and see you in some other venue at some point. Join me. Actually, I'm doing a panel with Sharon Salzberg and some other people. Obviously, I know who they are. On Thursday for Nalanda, which is the psychotherapy and really Vajrayana Buddhism kind of training institute in New York. So that will be online. You'll find it somewhere, probably on Nalanda's website, my website as well. So that will be fun. I think it's public. I just show up to these things and whatever. So thank you everyone so much, and I will let you go. And thank you again always to the tech hosts, to Karen and to Eric for their support. Sweet everyone.